Welcome back to Advertising is Dead with Vivek. Hi, Vivek. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being here.
Yeah, I wanted to actually, when I was preparing for this conversation, one of the first things I thought about is that as we have moved from a largely physical and partially digital existence as human beings, and now moved to largely digital and partially physical in that sense, um, from a wider and more macro point of view, how have you seen marketing as a function itself evolve? How have you seen that entire aspect kind of change?
I think it's something I've said often. The last year or so post the pandemic hitting us, I think marketing has probably is one area which has changed the most. Probably we've accelerated about 5 years in terms of what we would have evolved in a normal period of time.
Yeah.
So huge changes. Obviously, most of the mass media effectiveness had to be rethought. And how do we reach out to customers like you and me who are sitting in front of their screens at home?
Yeah.
Whereas, the traditional tenets of, mass marketing and mass communication has changed completely. So huge changes. I think changes for the better in some case. In some cases, I guess marketeers like me had to make very tough calls and make, I would say, be more nimble in terms of making tough calls as well from a mindset point of view. So extremely challenging, but at the same time, since it's so future facing, Varun, it's been pretty exciting as well.
You mentioned future facing, right? And that's actually, I mean, this leapfrogging ahead of how we function, how everything works. How has that kind of changed the consumer? Like, you would have always looked at a consumer in a certain way, and I know especially in the automobile category, it was always to get them to the showroom, and then over there, and post that it's the trial and it's the purchase, which I remember was whenever I worked with a brand which is in this category, was always the route you would kind of take, is to push them to that. And now in this digital form, how has the consumer changed? How has their purchase patterns, how they look at this particular category changed?
From a consumer point of view, I guess the entire way a customer approaches his buying journey. I'm here talking about any kind of product that he buys. It could be consumables, it could be high involvement purchases like automotive or maybe electronics or even jewelry. The entire approach and the time frame taken has changed. And all of us are consumers at some point of time. I think we recognize that the biggest change is in terms of how convenient it can be. And your convenience is basically defined by, can I get it in my doorstep? Do I trust the seller or the purchase process to give me the right product, exactly what I'm looking for, so that I'm not misled and get a similar looking product or something doesn't suit myself. Third aspect is the element of trust. I think consumers have quickly shortlisted what are the channels that give them the right product, but also give the caveat of you're probably returning or exchanging the product in case it doesn't suit them. That's a large change in mindset. But like you said, automotive has been a very touch and feel kind of a category. And obviously, the first touch is a touch by eye when you have to look at the product. And when customers don't go out at all, looking at cars on the road become that much less possible. The other thing we've noticed also is that even when customers go out now, casual mindset where you just look around and admire things around you is far lesser. It's a much more focused kind of stepping out that we do. We just finish whatever work we have to do. Even the so-called casual outings are much more focused, time-bound, probably. So attention span becomes very, very difficult in these conditions. And it's a big challenge for high involvement, high emotion products like automotive, where you attract customers by the way the car looks, the design of the car, the color of the car. And that becomes a huge part of the, I would say, positive voice in terms of brand. So we've used some kind of digital interventions, tech interventions to overcome that. Second, of course, is how do we reach a customer or reach the product to the customer in this digital age? And I think this is oft repeated kind of a phrase, but out of the many steps in an automotive buying journey, the attempt is to maximize how many of them can get to digital. And today, many of us in the automotive space are clear that apart from two interventions, one is a test drive if the customer requires it, and second is the delivery, which is largely preferred to be in physical contact. But most of the other steps can actually be done online and sitting in the customer's desk or at his home. So it's a big change. Like I said, to summarize, how do you, you know, get the phygital
Yeah.
technologies to
Yeah.
work? I can't help but use that cliche, but phygital is really here to stay.
Yeah.
And how do you make him confident about his purchase process online?
Yeah. The whole point about going out of our homes with a sense of purpose is interesting, right? Because it's so true. So like every time you go out, for the smallest of things that you have to do, to even say, I love the fact that you said the casual outings have also gone out with the purpose, because like I will go here, I will do this, and I will come back. You're not letting it. You're not just going out and figuring things out anymore.
It's not open-ended. The
Yeah,
visits are
yeah,
not open.
yeah, totally. Uh, and I also have seen one trend, and this is something which I've seen. There were a lot of people who had moved away from owning cars, and they said, "Okay, let me just Uber it, let me just take an Ola." And I've realized that a lot of them have started to purchase vehicles, and I know people who like at senior levels in a professional space, but real didn't want the driving experience. But at some point now, they all say, I think it's a safety piece now that they're all wanting to own, and in some ways that's a whole new subset of consumer for you to have been able to kind of bring in, who at some point I think the competition was different versus what it is right now in that sense. So when you are personalizing for, like, obviously the kinds of consumers you would focus on before, plus this is new, I'd say, COVID induced consumer, or rather because of COVID, they're looking at purchasing their own cars and own vehicles. um, how has your personalization of how you look at all consumers, how you target them and work with them changed?
You're right. I think codization has obviously dramatically hit the fleet business.
Hmm.
And also, there was a huge segment of customers who we call the one car households,
Hmm. Hmm.
where if the one person in the household uses a car, the other one or to Uber it, or if I can use the word, sorry, or fleet, never take a taxi, but I think that's changed. Most people have gone. There's a huge shift towards multiple car households now.
Hmm.
It's become a necessity. Also, the fact that to some extent, the prioritization of buying a car has changed. I keep saying that it used to be roti kapda makan, but
Hmm.
somewhere now in the top three car figures.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's changed because it's become a very basic form of safe travel and safety bubble even when you go out of your house.
Yeah.
In terms of personalization, yes, when we use the same. This is one area where I think car marketing has changed significantly. We use the same tools that it's available to most digital marketing. So all kind of databases, all kind of customer cohorts, if you can call them,
Hmm.
and try and gives information which is pertinent to that kind of cohort. We have still not moved to a very individualistic level of customized communication.
Hmm.
Partly because when I think it is a little too inclusive, and also we feel that that level of interaction can probably be held once a customer becomes part of our company.
Hmm.
Once a consumer or a intender becomes a customer, and
Hmm.
then we can probably address him by name, acknowledge that we know his daily routine, his or her daily routines. But right now, customization, at least from Tata Motors, we've kind of uh, focused around the cohorts. Cohorts are basically in terms of what have been their usage patterns, what have been their buying processes, tastes, geographical location. It's a mix of demographics, psychographics, and many other
Mm.
information that is available freely. Being from the Tata Group, we are very sensitive in terms of what is the kind of information that we can use and we should not. And we always focus that in case we use consumers' information, it should be firstly, obviously, that it is with their consent. Second is it going to benefit the customer rather
Yeah.
than benefiting us? These are two filters we put in. But yes, it's a huge change in terms of cohort-based communication, and where we're able to actually ascertain which car might suit which kind of a customer and be very specific about that.
No, I like the fact that you said that there's a certain point at which you need to stop, and not necessarily go as far before they become a customer, and then really go personalized post that. And I feel the post purchase part, I think, and I don't think that's just a effect of the last 2 years, but in general, one of the things digital has, I feel, done as well, is that at many times the job kind of ended at sale, but it's really now, I think, especially marketing has really helped kind of extend that, saying how are you kind of uh, working with, or rather connecting with the consumer even post sale, right? How are you building that relationship over the long term? So you're not just looking at future pieces, you're looking at how service happens, you're looking at just, I feel there's something there that digital has enabled, and now obviously
Absolutely.
become much larger.
Yeah.
How do you look at the I obviously want to touch upon the first part about how we look at it, and that point where you hit stop. But I'd love to kind of first get into how post purchase, how you look at that consumer and how you can kind of build that long standing relationship.
See, the need for post-purchase engagement, we call it customer engagement, has always been recognized. But I think that's where digital has played a huge role, where we can actually classify, segment the information in such a way that use the information to benefit the customer, make our own customers' life easier, and that's been the focus. And digital has helped us do that. So if I could take some examples, if you know the usage pattern of one of our customers and
Hmm.
what time of the day he prefers to give the car for service, and
Hmm.
usually how many months or weeks he takes to cover a time period between two services, it becomes extremely easy for us proactively tell the customer that, listen, hey, I think we think your service is coming up
Hmm.
shortly. We know that you prefer to do it on a Monday between 12 to 5 in the evening. Can we fix an appointment for you in the coming Mondays? Something like that. That really benefits the customer and has a huge impact in terms of how well the customer bonds with the company. It becomes a huge aspect of our net promoter score, as we call it.
Yeah.
In fact, the satisfaction with this kind of proactive and beneficial customer engagement is much higher than even if the product is doing great in some cases. So very important part. I just gave you probably a very tiny example, but it can go to many lengths in terms of how we engage constantly, meaningfully, and in a positive manner with our current customers. And digital has helped us tremendously in that. I would think that we are probably at about 5% of where we should be,
Hmm.
but it's a journey which has begun.
Do you also feel that it's, instead of looking at, okay, there is certain way you focus on a consumer pre-purchase, certain way during that purchase period, then this post, they're always in a bit of a silo. Now do you see that almost like, to take a digital term, that Phygital model is almost built a seamless user experience in that sense?
It should be. That's a very idealistic scenario where we treat intenders, customers, and post sale, consumers, in the same manner. Honestly, not too many companies have managed to achieve that. But if at all companies are able to even think about it and conceptualize it, it's because of the input of digital,
Yeah,
because of data and the tools and tech
you
that
can just
I
start.
was saying that it's an idealistic situation for companies to be able to do that. And the fact that we are even able to conceptualize it is due to digital, where we are able to measure and track customer experiences and hold all the experiences at the same scale. So if you look at Tata Motors, we are ideally not there. We're still not there at the ideal level, I would say. but it's definitely one area where we want to focus and grow in.
And how do you balance? And I know that whenever we talk about this, we always talk about digital, right? We don't necessarily talk about the physical. And I feel that that's still such a strong part of the entire function. And I have to remind people sometimes that, just because you're calling it, it's called Phygital, as much as the term is, it still has the fee at the beginning. Like we haven't
Absolutely.
forgotten that physical. And obviously that will go through its own evolution. But what are you seeing in that aspect of it? What do you see changes happening there?
I think very good question, because physical, it's not that we forget, but we forget that how much digital actually sets the template for a customer's expectation from physical. You many a time we see that there's a great experience online, but when the customer moves over the line, as we call it, into the physical world, there's a huge contrast in terms of brand experience, customer experience. And that's where, like I briefly mentioned earlier, we need to set the same parameters and same level of performance evaluation in the physical side as well. As a marketing guy, I would like to have the same experiences from a brand experience point of view, the same messages, the same nuances in terms of what triggers the customer's purchase intention. Has to be equal both in physical and digital side. So a lot of work is happening in terms of the ambiences of our showroom, the level of digital integration into the physical aspects as well. If when a customer has visited our website and visits our showroom, it shouldn't be a situation where we start from zero at the showroom. We should be able to kind of realize that this is a customer who's already had a little bit of journey on the digital side, and this is the product he's showing interest in, and it's a ongoing conversation when he comes to the showroom. So that those are certain small but very significant aspects which are going to make the phygital journey of customers far more stickier when it comes to brands, and customers are really going to hold us accountable for that, to the extent that if a brand gives a very good digital journey but doesn't follow up physically, then I don't think it's going to cut ice with the customer.
Do you also see this entire model evolving to also make marketing a lot more efficient? There's always this question about how much of it is spray and pray as the. I feel like I'm unfortunately bringing up too many cliche terms right now in this conversation, but I will just go with it. That seems to be the first thing that comes to my mind. But there was a lot of that. Do you feel that it's that the way marketing has evolved, and not necessarily, again, I'm not focusing on the last year but over time, as you've gotten deeper into looking at data, looking at how you work consumers, are you seeing it being more efficient and in that sense?
So I wouldn't use the word efficient. By efficient, if you mean that we spend lesser money to get the same amount of customers, not really, because I think what's happened now is we have much better visibility to customers even before they come to our showrooms or visit our websites. So a lot of work and maybe spend as well is going into the upper funnel activity, as we call it. Upper funnel is basically when probably once a customer searches for a particular brand, and we know that this is a customer who's probably likely to come to our showrooms in 6 months' time. So there's a lot of work which happens to be within that customer's eyesight. These are spends or areas which marketing never focused on earlier. So, even though I'm a marketer, I'll say marketing will never be efficient. There will always be a lot of areas which apparently are a waste of money, but it's only when you actually are able to thread the beads together across the journey that you can see that actually that aspect of spend has helped you at some other level. There's this huge obsession now with attributed sales as well, where a lot of work might have happened on digital to prime the customer into buying the car, but ultimately he's kind of ending up in your showroom, and we don't realize that he's actually a customer who's come through the digital funnel. So these are minor things, but I think what's happened is the scope of marketing has become much broader. We are able to influence the customer, like you said, much before he's actually turned a customer, and even afterwards. We spoke about the customer journey. There's a huge element of customer engagement and database marketing to our own customers to keep him engaged. And in our industry, having a customer also means that you can upgrade into uh, higher end products and more expensive products down the line. So those are areas where marketing monies were not spent too much earlier, but now and in the future, we'll see a much bigger spread of marketing monies across the buying cycle.
Turning it to the other side, do you see the kind of teams that make up marketing teams today having changed quite a bit from what you would traditionally have as marketing teams? Obviously, the responsibilities and I'd say the scope or rather the holdover sale as well has become a large part of marketing. But how have you seen the composition of the team change, especially for you?
Huge change, I would say, especially in a category where I'm working in automotive. Maybe about 1.5 decades back, the role of marketing was largely advertising and driving the traditional marketing funnel of consideration, awareness, and intention to buy. But today, if you look at it, we have a far more integrated role with the sales team in terms of demand generation. You spoke about physical retail. We spoke about customer engagement, post buying. There's a lot more sensitivity to be had towards the digital aspects of marketing as well, and loyalty programs. How do we kind of you know give the customer more and more benefits by being associated with the brand for a long time? So there are many, many aspects which the marketing team has to really, kind of brush themselves on. I would say in a category like ours, where the product is king, and the product is a very, very important part of, the entire marketing side. Product knowledge and being able to understand customer needs better, the evolution of customer needs, and kind of anticipating what's going to happen 2 3 years down the line. That aspect has really come to the fore hugely. So tracking usage and attitudes of customers, how the influence of other aspects of social life. When we speak about the pandemic, but because of the pandemic, the amount of influence that the screens have on our lives have changed hugely, and hence the demand of larger screens in our cars as well. So there are minor things like this, but today I would call the brand manager role, which is really the critical role in our organization to manage each brand, has become extremely broad. Right from having a idea of how the sales team, the network functions, how the customer acquisition process happens in the field, to the digital marketing, how to create and activate the digital funnel, better understanding of consumer trends through research, and obviously face-to-face interview with customers, and of course the traditional aspects of softer aspects of marketing, which is a glamorous aspect of advertising and communication. So I would say marketing today is probably in its most exciting phase that it has ever been. It has become very crucial to organizations as a kind of backbone on which the entire product development and the demand generation sits on.
One of the things which I constantly ask my guests, primarily because a large number of the audience we have are people who are trying to make sure that, if you're in college, you're trying to figure out, okay, what should I really focus on if I want to build a career in this space? If I'm starting off, or I'm trying to make that mid-career shift, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what skills do I need to, upgrade myself on? What skills do I need to focus on? What do you feel are almost like prerequisites right now if I was to work in marketing in this? I will not use that term again. We've used the term which starts with the P and ends with an L too many times in this conversation, so I will stay away from that. But if you have to work in this space, what according to you are almost the key areas you need to focus on, or rather build your capabilities on?
I think a keen understanding of how consumer mindset are changing. And today, fortunately, in the era of social media,
Hmm.
information is around all of us. As marketeers, I would urge people, anybody who's interested in marketing, to tune their minds and observation to have very neutral sense of observation. Have a key eye open for new needs forming,
Hmm.
new trends in terms of what the customers might uh, be looking for across categories, I would say. I'm
Hmm.
not just limiting myself to automotive, but it is this observation of people, the use of abundant information available digitally, whether it's the search engines or on social media feeds. There's so much of information and insights available without getting into the traditional forms of market research.
Hmm.
This is one area, keen observation, a neutral approach to looking at customers without having the filters of our own bias is very important. The second area is not to get fall into cliches. Today, it's funny that we've just been talking about cliches, but there are
Yeah.
a lot of marketing cliches. For example, this is how we, market to a North Indian. This is how we market to a South Indian, and this is how these are the colors that is normally liked by people.
Yeah.
These are the festivals where you have the maximum sales. I think cliches are gone. There is there's so much of disruption happening that consumers are just reacting to what is required at that moment on that day, and the consumer is not thinking about cliches,
Hmm.
unless it can be used as a further reason for his action, but it's not really driving the customer's action. And one of the dangers would be in present day marketing to fall into cliches and follow cliches, where we might completely lose the current trend and the current I would say preferences by customers. These are two large areas. Obviously, other areas is about not taking shortcuts to build a brand.
Hmm.
I've seen a lot of cost marketing and others. It sounds good. I think it makes for very good emotional films.
Hmm.
But is it really going to make your brand relevant to the customer?
Hmm.
Is it going to create a beautiful link between your product, your services, and your brand? Is something we should think about. And advertising is not about making emotional films or pretty creatives.
Yeah.
Brand management is much deeper than that. So a lot of I would say immersion into whatever product that you're working on, and then in kind of flesh it out with your customer understanding and constant pulse on the what the trends in the market is what I would suggest.
I love the fact that you spoke about the whole cost piece, right? Is that if it doesn't feel authentic to your brand at some point, the consumer is smart enough right now to figure it out, and they know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, when it's seamless and it's when it's not.
Yeah.
Uh, how have you seen yourself evolve as a leader? Especially, I would say the last, for anybody in a leadership role, last year and a half, last 2 years has been, I think, one of the most challenging periods for anyone in leadership. How have you seen yourself evolve as a leader, and what have you almost like? I know I spoke about upskilling for other things, but what have you kind of learned that okay, that these are things that you added to your arsenal of sorts in recent times?
Yeah. So in recent times, right, I just wanted
Yeah.
to clarify that I don't want to go back to so far that people can't recognize what
I
we're
wanted to
talking
go to
about.
so far. My next question is actually going to be, and I'll preempt this. My next question, Jen, is going to be that, and I think if you want, you can club them both. I always want to know: is this what you set out to be when you started off? So, is this what you set out to be, and how have you evolved as a leader? I will give
Okay,
you both of them together. You can
I'll
decide how
come
to
to
answer
that
it.
later
Yeah,
because it's something, it gives me some more time to think about the answer, but
yeah.
I'll cover your first question first. So, I think it's been pretty crazy, the amount of upskilling. I won't call it upskilling because it's not been formal,
Hmm.
knowledge gain, but it's more reaction to what's happening around us. Right from how markets have responded. People thought it's going to be all doom, but I mean, consumers have really obsessed with this revenge purchasing kind of
Mm.
stuff, and surprisingly, automotive industry did extremely well, is doing extremely well, managing our communication, managing our launches, all sitting at home or, all by yourself is
Mm.
something nobody could have imagined. So
Mm.
it's called for a lot of, I would say, I won't use the word innovation, I would use the word adaptation
Mm.
to how things can be done. It's forced me and my team to really filter down many of the problems to what is the root cause, what is the, or I won't even call it problems, many of the challenges to what really needs to be done.
Mm.
Many a time I use, I mean, again, I spoke about cliches earlier. We realized that if there was a problem, you just had a set solution.
Mm.
Many a time it was just like prescribing, some medicine for a headache. You
Yeah.
just do it blindly without trying to ascertain what exactly is required. But
Mm.
now the situation has forced us to dig deeper, go really to the crux of the issue and provide the very precise action to that. And for me, that is a big adaptation that has happened. Be it events, be it marketing challenges, marketing problems, be it launches, new launches. It's really allowed us to, or forced us to, be very, very specific, very, very focused on what the crux of the whole thing is. And that I think would benefit all of us as we go forward. If I can use a slightly, a bit of a jargon, it's
Mm.
allowed us to remove the far from our life, but
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of keep it extremely focused to what really matters. And I
Mm.
think to some extent it matters. It's true in our personal lives as well, but very much so in our professional lives, especially from a marketing point.
I totally agree with you on the removing the fat from our lives. That is literally been one of the core things I have learned over the last couple of. There's so many things which you would focus on or rather do in your time, which you now realize that why would I spend so much time in it?
Exactly.
And yeah.
Exactly.
And also time to value certain things which you didn't spend enough time on, I guess. I think that's the other side of it in
Absolutely.
that sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which brings me to a question which I preemptively told you about is that is this what you set out to be? Is this what your plan was when you started off your career?
To be honest, you know, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I started off. I started off in sales. I spent a lot of time in sales, pretty much enjoyed it a lot because it gave me, a lot of friends for life. But marketing was the strategic side. Sales kind of limits you to the next month and the next quarter,
Mm.
next year. But marketing obviously has a much longer horizon
Mm.
for which we need to plan, and that fascinated me on the strategic side. And I mean, I've done fairly well here, so no complaints. I mean, when I started off in marketing, I said, let me get a taste of it and then maybe head back to where I belong.
Yeah.
But I've been belonging to marketing for a pretty long time now and enjoying it as well. So, and I think I'm pretty privileged and lucky to be um, managing a marketing function for a large organization in these kind of times,
Mm.
and being able to make a difference, not only to the organization, but I also humbly believe to a few people out there in our own small way. So more than happy where I am right now. Yeah.
One of the reasons I ask this question, that is that a lot. I have a lot of people who listen and just starting off, and they're like, "Okay, I need to know exactly where I'm headed." And my answer is generally that most people, if you talk to anybody who's a senior person, they will always tell you they weren't necessarily sure of where they wanted to be,
Absolutely.
but it's something you find over time.
Absolutely. Because if you're very honest about yourself, you discover who you are and what you're worth at every step in life. I mean, and there's this famous saying that you grow to the level of your incompetence, and I don't want to. I think it's a little bit of a harsh statement, but it's
Mm.
very, very realistic. You grow to a certain level, and here I don't mean levels of organization. I think for whoever's listening and the young people on the podcast, it's not about levels of an organization. I think it's the way to define a role is how big an influence you have, for to people around you and in your organization. It could It could be right at top or somewhere in the middle there or at the entry level. But if every time you reach there, then you assess that, okay, have I done full justice to my current role? And then you realize if you're ready for the next, So I think, that is a key element on which to assess career success. And also when we leave, the one thing which has driven me, Varun, and I'd like to take the liberty to say that is, have I left my chair richer than what I got into it in terms of the knowledge, in terms of how much it is impacting a company and how much value add it provides a company. So as long as people are focused on making their current chair stronger, richer, and more meaningful in the organization, I think there'll always be scope to go for.
That's actually a great point to make. Is that I think that really defines legacy, right? It's that, and I think that's so important to focus on as you build. And as much as there is the quarter and there is the month, there is also this aspect which I think is far more important in the long term, which you look at. And speaking of long term, if I had to ask you, and I know that this is generally a loaded question, to say these are almost like trends you're seeing for where some of the aspects of how marketing is going to go towards in the years to come, what would those be?
I think personalization is going to play a huge role for sure. But as marketers, we need to be careful that on what personalization means. For me, personalization means giving the right products for each individual to begin with. It's not about communicating to somebody, sending a mailer with his or her name, but rather use the data to create the right solution or the right product for the customer so that he realizes, says, wow, this is exactly what I need, not even what I thought I need. And I think that should be the, ultimate objective of marketing going forward. So we can speak a lot about customized communication, customizable products, and many things, data-based, AI-based, analytics and stuff. But the simple goal should be able to give the customer what he really needs at in the easiest possible way that he can obtain it. Could be the ultimate role of marketing going forward. If every company uses the data to reach that goal, I think it will be a fairly good journey for marketers.
As we come towards the end of every episode, I ask my guests a set of questions which are not at all about the work. And I generally ask the same questions. I always find that this is something which the audience enjoys, and most times the guests enjoy as well. So if I had to ask you, apart from what you do in your position or in your job, what do you spend a lot of time doing or focusing on beyond that people would not know about? Like what is your beyond work? I won't even call it pastime. I'll be doing something or consuming something. So I love to hear what that is for you.
So I have a passion for running. So I spend a lot of my time in that, probably close to an hour every day running. And that's kind of kept me sane, little bit healthy.
Yeah.
But it's also my me time where I think about many things in life without being disturbed by phone calls or doorbells or other stuff. So that is, kind of a penicillin, I would say, which solves many problems in my life. So it takes care of health. It gives me my me time. It gives me time to ponder about many things without being disturbed. So that's one aspect.
I totally. I think running and the more people I speak to who do enjoy running on a daily basis tell me that 1 hour, which it's almost like meditation, because you
Absolutely.
are not necessarily you're so connected to yourself, and it's just you and that feeling of movement that really makes it something else altogether.
Yeah, true.
What can you put together in an instant?
In an instant.
Yeah.
Apart from Maggie, maybe a story to sell my product.
Anything you've read, watched, or listened to recently that you'd recommend people should check out?
Not read too much, but the one of the reads that I always go back to in terms of pure inspiration is Dominic Lapierre's uh, book about Gandhi.
Mhm.
So yeah,
That's a
it's
fabulous one, actually. That's a great one
yeah,
to read.
yeah. So it's not Freedom at Midnight actually.
Mm,
So it's not something. Uh, it's not a political
mm,
statement I'm making, but it's just the style of writing,
mm.
and also the recognition that even the most difficult situations have solutions.
Mm.
I think it's very inspirational, and I do go back to that very often.
And my closing off question, which generally is an adaptation of the name of the show, to what I have to ask you is, why do you think marketing will not die?
Marketing is value creator. At its core, it's a value creator in the organization. At various levels, at the basic level, it's about letting people know about the products and services that you have. But beyond the point, once competition comes in, it creates that additional edge so that you can sell your product at that small higher price or higher profit to survive
Yeah.
competition better. So it's almost like the heartbeat of an organization.
Mhm.
You can have the best brain, but if you don't have a healthy heart, you might
Yeah.
not last too long. So marketing, I would say, is the heartbeat which adds value to an organization.
Thank you so much, Vivek. It's been fabulous having you on the podcast. And there's so many
Same.
pointers here for people to take. And I hope it was fun for you as well. And thank you for
It was
coming on
fun.
Advertising is Dead.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Really enjoyed it, Varun. Thank you for the opportunity. Bye.